Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there were monarchs who were very exquisite, prim, and with upturned noses. They gave them elegant and fine olies. They looked down on everyone and had a lot of etiquette for everything they did. In the mornings there was a way to greet and dress. At noon you had to change your clothes to go eat. At night, the palace protocol forced everyone to change their clothes again, and after dinner they used to enjoy long talks on various topics, for example, the use of wigs in this or that kingdom, the different makeup that was in fashion in this or that country, or the proper use of girdles that properly cinched the waist to avoid belching, or pettities that were considered very rude. In these talks, they were instructed on how to properly greet people from high society, the correct use of the different cutlery at mealtime, or the ways to get out of some trance or unforeseen etiquette. If, for example, due to gas, you intended to let a fart escape, you had to squeeze your ass hard, and if it was inevitable that it would escape, you would hide it with continuous little coughs and go out onto the balcony, the next room, or some secluded corner. This and other issues were discussed in those meetings that lasted a long time. It is not necessary to clarify that life in the palace was very boring. So much vain talk, so much protocol, so much finesse had fed up the prince. The prince certainly did not like so much fuss, protocol, and endless talk that apparently everyone enjoyed in the palace, everyone except him, who fell asleep in his chair, yawned openly, or played by throwing rolled-up pieces of paper at other attendees at the meeting. He was a rebel. He did not dress as indicated by his mother, the queen, his father, the king, or his advisors. He did not eat with the finesse and delicacy that everyone demanded. He sipped the soup, talked with his mouth full, and even belched in full diners. Faced with so much impertinence, his parents could not handle his behavior. They looked at him angrily, signaled to him with their eyes, and even kicked him under the table to make him behave properly. As he was of marriageable age, the kings were willing to marry him off to a court damsel who would bring him to her knees. It must be said that the prince behaved that way not because he was dirty, extravagant, or rude, but because he did not like a little bit of so much regard, nor so much finesse, nor so much mandate and organization for everything that existed at court. Wanting him to get engaged, every day the queen presented him with a beautiful lady chosen by herself to see if she would dazzle the heir to her love. She left them alone in some corner and hoped that their marriage plans would bear some fruit. But the little prince went off on a tangent every time he found himself in that trance. When his mother asked him about the lady in the making, she replied, "Her nose is too long, she is too skinny, her eyes are round," and so on. The real desperation that the mother had did not let her sleep, and one day she sentenced the prince, "We will look for a girlfriend for you, and that's it. There is nothing to say, nor to think, nor to argue. You are the heir to the throne, and you have to sit head, get serious, and you have to get married and give us grandchildren." The prince was speechless. We all know that when our mother gets angry and says something, there is no going back. He mumbled the queen's words as she watched her, glaring at him with her determination and behavior. "Well, mother," she told her, "I'll marry as you ask me, I'll settle down, I'll behave as my rank requires, I only put a small condition." The queen looked at him unconvinced and suspicious at her suggestion. "I will marry that lady who is as fine, elegant, regal, and delicate as you are." Those words touched the queen's heart. She was a king's daughter, a king's niece, a king's wife, a king's sister-in-law, a king's granddaughter, a king's great-granddaughter, a king's great-great-granddaughter, a king's great-great-great-granddaughter, and so on for as long as she could remember. Her family could be said to be of rancid ancestry. Kings and queens on both father's and mother's sides. Blue blood ran through her royal veins. With that reality in his head and his son's idea of only marrying a woman of his own condition, he began to wonder how to find not just any society lady, but a real princess of royal ancestry, like that. Like her to marry his heir. She had to be as fine, delicate, educated, and refined as she was. She made a statement to all the neighboring kingdoms that had marriageable daughters, and since it was impossible to know the true roots of those princesses, since there were many idiots and nouveau riche among the monarchs, she devised a plan that could not fail. In the message sent, he invited the heiresses to spend a night in the palace and prepared a beautiful bright room jolly decorated, but, when going to bed, the princesses had to climb some stairs, because the bed had no more and no less than 16 mattresses. And, without anyone knowing, she herself, minutes before the guests went to sleep, would put a small pea on the mattress below the bed. Only a true princess of true royal blood would have trouble resting with that discomfort on her back. They were fun dates in the palace. Every night there was dancing, music, and a banquet. Then the queen herself accompanied the guest to the room, and after wishing her good night she let the princess rest. The next morning the queen herself accompanied a waitress who brought breakfast and asked with great primness and education, "Dear, how did you sleep?" Ugh, the results weren't good at all. Almost all responded, "Marvelously, Majesty." They had to wake one of them up by shaking and shaking, because she was such a deep sleeper that there was no way to wake her up. Another of her was found with her mouth open and a couple of flies flying around her, almost entering through her. Another woke up roomy and yawning for a long time. One of them had not even been able to get on the mattresses, and she sat in an armchair and there she remained sprawled. And one snored in such a way that no one slept in the palace that night. The queen was desperate, the princesses were running out and she couldn't find the right one for her son. One stormy night, at a very late hour, there was a knock on the doors of the castle. When they opened they were all amazed, speechless, stunned and hallucinated. A girl drenched to the bone with her hair dripping, her clothes in tatters, appeared before the kings and asked for asylum and quarters for a few nights. According to what she told them, she was a princess from a kingdom that was so far away that it would take months to reach it. She had left with a large entourage from her faraway land to visit another kingdom that was also far, far away. The trip was made in a ship loaded with jewels, treasures, fine fabrics and various gifts to take as an offering to the kingdom that the princess would visit, but they were surprised by a great marine gale that capsized the ship in such a way that it ran aground in the rocks. The princess left the soldiers, servants, and ladies-in-waiting collecting and saving as best they could all those things that the ship was carrying, and she headed to the palace to ask for help, food and a room for herself and the retinue that accompanied her. Immediately the king sent a garrison of people to help those people in need of help with the tasks, and they made the princess go into a large room where the fireplace was lit to warm her up. As soon as the crown prince saw the princess, he was delighted with her. It must be what they call love at first sight, and exactly the same thing happened to the princess. They brought her food and the little princess began to eat eagerly. She was really starving. She did not respect any of the courtesy principles of the palace, and even at one point she burped loudly. "Sorry," said the princess, and she gave a little smile. The prince at that moment approached her. Not only had he fallen in love with her beauty, but he also loved that ease with which he behaved. The queen, on the other hand, looked at her quite angrily. She already had one at home who didn't keep fine manners, but now she was presented with another one who didn't keep them either. Looking at her fixedly, she wondered if she really was a princess or if, on the contrary, he could be fooling everyone. Seeing the good relationship that was beginning to emerge between her son and her stranger, she began to question her. "And tell me, princess, where is this kingdom that you say is your land from?" "Majesty, do you know where the purple lands are?" "Of course I do, her lavender flowers are famous." "Do you know the steep mountains? And to its King Bartolomeo 15th. Have you heard of the Marmenor?" "Of course, large merchants of cloth and spices." "Well, entering the lands that lead to the Marmenor and climbing for many days to the north, one arrives at the lands under my father's domain." "What is the name of that kingdom so far away?" "Lurdera." The queen raised her eyebrows. What words were those? "We were going in a procession to the eastern lands," the princess continued speaking, "to correspond to the visit that the sultan of those lands made to our kingdom, and as I told you, the storm surprised us on the way and we have run aground in your domains. I thank you for the aid that you give us so generously, your majesty. We will leave you part of the gifts that we carry in our luggage to reciprocate your kindness." "Please," interrupted the prince, "princess, you don't have to pay for anything that we are gladly offering you, and he smiled very, very kindness. The princess reciprocated with another smirk. The queen immediately understood that they both liked each other. The queen was not entirely happy with this rapprochement between her son and her stranger, but come to think of it, if she were a real princess, at least she had found some girl who could make her son change and do it. Settle down. After she finished dinner and knowing that her entourage was undercover and resting, the princess yawned openly and made the prince smile happily. She loved the self-confidence that the princess showed, her naturalness and sincerity. The queen, however, frowned. She would have to educate this girl. She took the princess to the room they had arranged. "My goodness!" the princess exclaimed when she saw the bed, "but why does so much mattress come together?" The queen, to whom no previous princess had said anything, raised her eyebrows. "They are high royal customs, daughter. Don't you know these customs in your land?" "No, of course not, little customs. In my land we have a mattress, period. Our mattresses are stuffed with good wool, they are fluffy, and with just one we have plenty, and that's enough." "Well, here we have this custom," said the queen dryly. "I hope, princess, that you know how to appreciate them with respect." "I will respect them if that pleases you, your majesty, but what a few ideas you have here. Tell me, ma'am, are you so extravagant in everything?" "I say this so as not to err in my behavior." No, we are not extravagant, princess. We are educated, fine, and we do not question the customs of others." "I'm sorry, your majesty," said the princess, "I don't mean to offend you. Rather, I am grateful for everything you have done tonight for me and my companions." "Well," the queen replied, "it's time to sleep. I hope you rest well, princess," she said, and looked mysteriously at the 16 mattresses, one on top of the other. "Tomorrow morning I'll come myself to wake you up." She went out, closed the door, and ran into her son, the prince, who had been listening to their conversation. "It's rude to listen to other people's conversations," she told him. Mother, her son replied with a happy face, "I love this girl. I have fallen in love with her since I saw her at the palace gate. I like that sincerity with which she speaks, that ease." "Bah," replied the mother, "for me she is not a princess or anything, a true lady of high society. She does not have that self-confidence of this girl. Answer me, where have you seen such a thing? Telling me that we are extravagant and weird." "Mother, recognize that sleeping on so much mattress is strange, to say the least." "I know what I'm doing. Let's see if the little princess sleeps comfortably tonight." Saying this, she went to her room, and the prince stayed there with a self-absorbed face, thinking of his lover. The next morning the queen went to the kitchens very early, and she asked that breakfast be prepared for the guest. She knocked on the door of the room and entered very resolutely with the maid and breakfast. "Wake up, dear," she said, "we bring you breakfast." The princess got up and went down the stairs to where the queen was waiting for her. "Tell me, dear, how was your night?" "Oh, your majesty, I don't want to offend you. Please don't take what I'm about to tell you the wrong way, but this invention of mattresses doesn't work, I assure you. First, it was very difficult for me to get up that high, then I was afraid to move on my own, I was going to fall from so high, and finally I spent a horrible night. I don't know what was in the mattresses that I couldn't sleep a wink of sleep. There was a pain that was stinging my back. If I turned to one side it bothered me terribly. If I turned on the other side, the same. If I turned face down I could not bear it. I assure you, your majesty, that in my land you would sleep wonderfully with just one of our mattresses. I will send you one of them as soon as I return to my country." The queen did not know what to answer. She was stunned by the princess's response. After having breakfast and getting ready, the princess inquired about the state of her ship, and when she found out that she was ready to leave, she said goodbye with a great bow and left with all her entourage to continue the journey, but not before giving her a look and a smile. To the prince. The prince at one point was left without knowing what to do, but in a second he ran to the door and, taking the princess's dress sleeve, told her, "No, princess, you can't leave." "And why not?" she asked him. it is necessary that I fulfill the mission that my father entrusted to me. Well, the sea is very dangerous, it has been rough these days, another storm could surprise you again, and in that situation what would you do? The princess looked at him, and just as she was resolute, she told him, I would seek refuge as I did in your kingdom, although I doubt that I would feel as good as with your presence, help, relief. They looked into each other's eyes and both smiled. Princess, if you leave me, where can I find you? In that you was it so far away and with such a strange name? There I will be waiting for you, prince. After a few days, the entire palace entourage undertook a long journey to the Mar-Menor, and from there, following the instructions that the princess had given them, they went up to the northern lands for several days to meet the lord of that kingdom. The prince's parents had a terrible time. The people around there were sincere, frank, open, and although hospitable, they did not have the delicacy and good behavior that they did in their court. They married the prince to the princess, and as a gift to the queen mother of rancid ancestry they gave her a large wool mattress from the sheep of that kingdom. And color in Colorado this story,